But yeah, we can get started. So next slide. Yeah, again, thanks everyone for coming. This is the New Voices Are Rising team, plus some fellow alumni. My name is Jackie Verduzco. I'm the Air Quality and Data Associate here at New Voices Are Rising. My work is focused on air quality monitoring, data sharing, youth and community engagement. Also today, not pictured, but in the Zoom meeting is Michaela and Andrea, also on the New Voices staff. I think they're waving. But yeah, I'll pass it over to Natia to introduce herself.
Hi, my name's Satia, and I was the previous Contra Costa Air Quality Fellow, and I'm from Antioch, California.
And my name is Selena. I'm the previous East Oakland Air Quality Fellow, and I'm from Oakland.
So who we are, New Voices Are Rising. We are a youth fellowship program. We're a youth program. We empower young BIPOC leaders from across the Bay Area to address environmental issues affecting their communities. So through our program, youth can conduct community-based research, work on hands-on direct solutions, and advocate for policy solutions. Next slide. So some of the topics that youth focus on are environmental and justice issues, such as those impacting air quality. So why we're here today is to highlight findings from youth fellows across Oakland, Richmond, and Contra Costa, who spent the past year leading community workshops, focus groups, and data collection on local air quality. And yeah, we want to share what they found. Next slide. So the reason that we want all of you here today is because it's a critical opportunity for decision makers to hear directly from young people and community members most affected by air pollution. These are the people living next to freeways, refineries, industry, walking to school, and facing these things on a daily basis. Next slide. Yeah, so what communities did we engage through our year of research? We engaged community and place monitors in these three regions. So we looked at East Oakland and then West Contra Costa, including Richmond, San Pablo, Rodeo, and also parts of East Contra Costa, so Antioch, Pittsburgh areas. We focus on these AB 617 priority communities because we know they face a higher cumulative pollution burden from proximity to different sources of pollution like refineries, ports, highways, industrial corridors. And we also have strong youth leadership and community partnerships in these areas. Next slide. And I'll pass it on to Natia.
Yeah, thank you. A defining moment for NVR and air pollution monitoring in the Bay Area was the 2012 Chevron refinery explosion and fire. Days after the event, much of the community was left vulnerable to the massive plumes of smoke that went on for days on end, and the community in Richmond, in response, banded together against Chevron in attempts to prevent any similar incidents from happening in the future. And just 5 years later, in 2017, Assembly Bill 617 was passed, which gave more power to the community in air quality monitoring and held refineries accountable with refinery-based monitoring. More recently, as of last year, both the Richmond and Martinez refineries were fined $138 million for continued emissions of air pollution or pollutants. Our work at NVR has been built upon the Chevron refinery and other sources of pollution like it and its effect on local communities. Our youth fellows have hosted numerous workshops for other youth from Richmond, San Pablo, and Rodeo, along with youth surveys being conducted specifically from one of our former fellows, Abdahal, which has provided a lot of valuable insight. And because of the action we've taken, we've also been able to install monitors within various communities. Next slide.
Thanks, Natia. So apart from Richmond, we also look at the air quality in East and West Oakland, which is marked by the arrows on the map. West Oakland, which is the area that's outlined by the red experiences typically higher levels of diesel pollution and truck traffic. That said, there's also been many meaningful progress in recent years as one of the pollutant source, which is Port of Oakland, has worked with their community members in taking responsibility for its impacts and in reducing emissions. However, for East Oakland, it is a little different, but it continues to be heavily affected by the pollution from I-80 freeway and the Oakland International Airport. And there's been numerous research that has been shown that residents that live in those areas experience like higher rates of cardiovascular diseases such as asthma and heart disease. And the health burdens only worsened over the ongoing disputes over Oakland International Airport's plans for expansion. And then what's interesting about this is that when you compare this to Oakland Hills, which is a wealthier, mostly white neighborhood, it gets more interesting because residents in East and West Oakland are exposed to more pollution and tend to have shorter life expectancy patterns, which reflects the lasting effects of redlining and environmental racism. As opposed to Oakland Hill residents, which reported not only better air quality typically, but a 7-year longer life expectancy. Passing back to Natia. Next slide.
Um, yeah, so in Contra Costa County, communities or towns such as Antioch have had similar struggles with their own sources of pollution. In Antioch, the Gateway Generating Station, as shown on the left right here, uses natural gas to generate energy, and this energy is broadly connected to the Chevron refinery, which refines crude oil to create fuel. And the degradation of the environment from both of the polluters is apparent. Health impacts are also noticeable within Antioch with higher rates of cardiovascular issues, genetic changes, and mental health issues. Specific areas highlighted on the top right show places where a lot of youth felt were areas of concern, with downtown Antioch being highlighted, which is where Gateway Generating Station is located. A lot of similar patterns are also displayed on the bottom right, which depicts Chevron Refinery being highlighted and its nearby ports. These pollution sources have various environmental impacts, such as disrupting wildlife in nearby waters, natural currents often being changed from ships or water conditions being drastically changed within both the bay and the delta. Next slide.
So we want to dig into a little deeper question into what is really the correlation between air quality monitoring and environmental justice work? And how does like air quality monitoring serve like this critical role in our work? To preface our question a little bit, I want us to look at the images to the left. These images are taken from our workshops from all the attending youth from all over the Bay. The image on the top is a picture of Leah and George, who lives in different areas, and we are basically mapping their air quality index and monitor placement using Calorimeter screen and Purple Air. Calorimeter screen is the color-coded map up on the top depicting the air quality index along with the age, race, and income, etc. And Purple Air is like the bottom map, which is depicting this like static and singular monitors in like single areas. And what really stands out here is that like the red where Leah resides is more in a low income bracket and with more POC. Not only is it more like polluted, but it also has fewer monitoring sites and less available data, as opposed to George, which is the wealthier neighbor and is like less polluted, but they're supported by this like denser monitor network. So what a crucial detail here is that like we found out is that there's a lack of data in areas that are most affected by air quality. And this is crucial because air quality monitoring for these marginalized community, often low income or people of color, are disproportionately exposed to higher levels of air pollution, but then there's inadequate monitoring or research about it and enough data points. So because of the funding and resource disparities, these neighborhoods tend to have fewer air quality monitors, and these create like significant data gaps and leads to underreporting of pollution exposure and its health impacts. In contrast, the wealthier and better resource area receive more of like a comprehensive monitoring map, and then as a result, there's greater protection given to them rather than low resource neighborhood. Next slide.
Sorry. So when we began our analysis last year, we started by wanting to take a look at the monitoring that was going on so far and comparing air quality data between environmental justice and non-environmental justice communities. But what we found was that there was actually so few monitors, purple air monitors in the areas that we were interested in comparing and analyzing in these environmentally burdened communities. So our first analysis was not really comparing the air quality data, but comparing the gaps in monitoring. This is a analysis that I'm going to be posting on our Instagram and sharing with our networks, but it shows kind of what we found when we first started doing our analysis. Given the EPA toxics release inventory and then data from purple air monitors, an analysis of 3 counties, so Alameda, Contra Costa, and San Francisco, we found that 63.6% of major polluters in the Bay Area had 0 purple air monitors within 0.75 miles of their site. So this was a really high amount. And on the right, we see that 18.2% had only 1, 3.9 had only 2. So next slide. Here we can see what this looks like specifically in East Oakland when we first started our analysis. In the red, you can see the polluters, and the circles, the 0.75 mile radius. And we see that in the surrounding areas like Oakland Hills or Alameda, which have lower CalEnviro screen environmental burden scores, we see that they have more purple air monitors, but there's a lot of gaps in East Oakland along polluters like the 880 freeway, and not many purple air monitors around those polluters that we see. Next slide. We also see along the refinery corridor in East Contra Costa, zoomed in, we can see Pittsburgh on the top right, and then Antioch on the bottom right. We see that there are concentration of polluters here from industry, but even though these are next to residential areas, there's not many purple air monitoring going on there. And this is one of the areas that we chose to install because we saw there was such a lack of monitors there. Next slide. So this is a quick comparison of purple air monitors in environmental justice versus non-environmental justice communities. This is not an in-depth analysis, but kind of just looking at comparisons like Selena talked about. So using a tool called CalEnviroScreen, which shows like cumulative burden, we compared across the communities that we engage. We compared communities with higher environmental burden score with those of a lower score. So for example, Piedmont and Alameda versus Deep East Oakland, where we have monitors installed. We also compared Point Richmond versus East Richmond Heights, and then Pittsburgh versus Clayton. So for my quick analysis, I looked at these. I looked at the monitors that we've installed and that data, also the monitors nearest to our monitor. And then we looked at the comparison monitors from neighborhoods with a CalEnviroScreen score in the green. And for this, I looked at hourly data from October to December 2025. Next slide. So just based on this analysis of a few monitors, we found that there is a difference that you can note between, for example, East Oakland with a higher CalEnviroScreen score where our monitors are located, and Piedmont with, these are hourly averages over these 3 months. The difference was pretty significant for this. Also, the difference between East Oakland and Alameda we found was, of note, and the differences between Richmond and East Richmond and Pittsburgh and Clayton. So this is just to compare what's going on in EJ versus non-EJ communities, but we plan on installing more monitors and having a more in-depth analysis to share at the end of our monitoring. And just for note, I have the sensor IDs of the monitors that were used for this. Next slide. Okay, so going into our community engagement findings, Over the past year, our youth fellows gathered insights through, like we said, youth-led workshops, focus groups, surveys, mapping, mobile monitoring activities. And so in the following slides, we'll share what youth told us about all these things that impact how they feel air quality in their day-to-day life is. Next slide.
And to get started, one of the main thing that we did is the air quality focus group within our fellows. And basically in this 1 hour focus group, youth from all Bay Area asked about their concerns. We asked about their concerns and their monitoring preferences. So there's 3 main findings. And one of them is that like most of the youth prioritize placing these monitors and receptors around areas that typically serve disadvantaged communities like themselves. And some that are listed are like schools, parks, and residential area. And then the last 2 points is that like most of them actually would prefer having mobile air quality monitors for outdoor use as opposed to like static ones or just for indoors. Next slide.
Yeah, and to add on to that, a lot of what youth in our focus groups express strong emotions, including frustration, anxiety, and helplessness over the stagnation and lack of recognition in air quality advocacy. Despite their efforts, many felt that the progress was limited. One youth emphasized the importance of youth education and involvement, saying, "They are our future, and by educating them about these issues, we can try and prevent pollution." Here, we're really trying to emphasize the importance of youth involvement, youth awareness, and education in this sort of work, and how we should continue building empathy, understanding, and connection within our communities moving forward and to continue to do so. Next slide.
And then particularly in our focus group and workshop too, our youth reflected and reported experiencing like these physical effects of air pollution, like headaches and having fatigue near schools and freeways, which is kind of problemsome if it affects the productivity of their ability to do well in schools. And there's also one student that noted that they see students at their school having asthma due to bad air quality. And then in our workshop, students often identify daycares, clinics, and homes as similarly vulnerable areas. So what we gather from this is that there seems like a consensus concern around having monitors around populated and vulnerable areas. So in the future, moving forward, we recommend increasing air quality monitors in areas with high population density, such as schools, to better protect health and pinpoint air pollution sources. Next slide. And then a little bit about our air quality monitoring workshop. We had 3 fellows leading station focusing on the main objective of locating air quality monitors. And I was also within those 3 fellows. My station emphasized air quality awareness, which helped participants identify common pollutants in their neighborhoods using Purple Air and Calamental Screen. But some of the things that we noted is that Purple Air doesn't seem to reflect the actual air experience for some of them. And because like some would say it appeared clean on Purple Air, but shows high pollution on Calamental Screen. So in the future, we can definitely expand monitoring beyond Purple Air to track other pollutants and address diverse pollution exposures across neighborhoods, because Purple Air really only measures PM 2.5. Additionally, we can also have more education around like data utilities, like Purple Air real-time reading versus the consensus data that Calamental Screen gives us for a better, clearer understanding. Next slide.
Yeah, and the next station from the air quality monitoring workshop was the walk, which was hosted by another one of our former fellows, Alyssa. And here's a picture of that right down here. And in the station, Alyssa walked around with the attendees and monitored the nearby environment with a portable air quality monitor and observed the differences of greenery in the area. Many were surprised at the lack of greenery near main roads, which faced pollution from passing cars, and noticed that gentrified areas had more greenery. And the overall conclusion from all of the groups was that freeways, industrial facilities, and lack of green spaces all had effects on their air quality. In the station, youth were able to connect with technical information and participate in technical training with an air quality monitor, and were able to make inferences on how air quality is affected by the environment. In the third station, which was my station, I had a combination of an I Spy and mapping activity where we had discussions relating to what the youth believed were sources of pollution. Many of the participants noticed that their local air quality with polluters was vastly different than those without. And also, here's a link at the bottom, which I believe Jackie will put in the chat for you guys. And it basically shows all the monitoring suggestions for air quality monitors from all the workshops and focus groups we've done throughout the years. Yeah, next slide.
And then a little bit from our previous fellow at the hall, she also did a Jung survey findings that surveyed a lot of Richmond students, or yeah. And of the three findings, one is that like most do not really know what flaring is, but they feel the impacts of flaring in their air qualities, like having headaches during flare days. And then secondly, over half of them know someone with respiratory illness, and many shared that people in their lives has asthma, or like they know someone that has asthma. And most of them know about like these pollution sources, but don't really know much of the impacts. Next slide.
So we also conducted a regional air quality survey and received community responses from English and Spanish speaking communities from communities across the Bay. What we found was that all sources of pollution that we noted as pollution sources that we were asking people about, they all said that they at least had one severe or urgent concern for this source. But we found that the highest urgency was for refineries. A lot of people noted specifically the Chevron refinery, but also industrial sites, factories, freeways, and truck traffic. There's just a little clip from our poll. And also we found that for barriers and preparedness, around 40% of respondents reported financial barriers to protection. So protection against like flaring incidents or wildfires. Nearly half reported that they did not feel prepared for a wildfire or refinery incident. Next slide. But our main takeaways from this survey was that the most urgent needs listed as highest as critical and urgent were free and affordable home air filters. Many people noted that they found that this was something that would positively impact their health, but also enforcement against illegal dumping, stricter regulations on trucks and industry. Other things that were mentioned were more monitoring in schools and neighborhoods, things like emergency response plans for bad air days, and more green spaces, education on pollution and health, and better public transit. We also polled people on their knowledge of air quality monitoring resources, like reporting tools or data tools. And I found that over half didn't know about air quality tools like Purple Air or AirNow. But although many reported never using these air quality resources, many people reported wanting to learn more and wanting to get involved in advocacy, education, and reporting. Next slide.
And then moving on to our recommendation portion, I'm going to add on to the monitoring recommendation in particularly expanding and targeting air monitors. So for our first proposal, we would probably want to add more monitors in populated areas and vulnerable populations like schools, daycares, and dense residential areas. And then secondly, we would want these monitors to be near air pollution sources like refineries and freeways, and that expands like community regulatory monitoring, and then we can gather more data on the impacts of pollution sources. Third of all is that we should make air quality more usable, like the monitoring apps more usable and portable, which is mobile or easier to carry for outdoor use. And additionally, a map for these data to be collected using monitors, and make like this network of fixed portable monitors mixed with like some indoor monitors and like mobile monitors. And then lastly, we should also potentially in the future explore monitors outside of things that only narrowly focus on PM 2.5 and have a better understanding of what like consensus data is, its pros and cons, and real life data. Next slide.
Yeah, and to add on to that, here are some more like data recommendations for making air quality data more accessible, and actionable. The first one is to share multilingual tools and that combine real-time data such as Purple Air with consensus data such as Cal and Viroscreen, so people understand both the right now and along with long-term picture. The second is to offer youth and family-friendly trainings on how to read air quality maps, give suggestions on air quality data platforms like wearing mask, have special settings for impacted groups like youth or individuals with sensitivity to air pollution. And the third is more easy to use alerts such as texts, apps, social media, school announcements for wildfire days, refinery incidents, and bad air days, and to integrate these alerts into more commonly used tools and increase awareness for these tools overall. The fourth is to increase accessibility of the tools that show fence line monitoring or monitoring done by polluters or refineries. Information about pollutants, AQI measurements, and potential health implications should be clear, and technical information should be youth-friendly and as accessible as possible. Next slide.
Finally, we want to share some community health recommendations addressing health and direct impacts. So first, providing more free or low-cost home air filters for people, masks, and having clean air classrooms in schools and community centers. Second is developing clear bad air day protocols in schools in case of things like wildfires or flaring events, having protocols for like indoor recess, maybe no outdoor sports, no idling near campuses, etc. Third, investing in green buffers like trees, vegetation, and safe public spaces away from heavy traffic and industrial corridors. And fourth is using cumulative impact data in land use decisions. So stop placing major sources of pollution near sensitive receptors. Next slide.
And from the information we've gathered, a lot of the youth would want to create formal roles for themselves and give residents agency and advisory boards, city commissions, and AB 617 processes. Also, they want to support a regional environmental justice youth coalition so that youth from Richmond, East Oakland, and East Costa Contra County can bring joint proposals to cities and agencies. Next slide.
So those were our recommendations, but I also want to talk a bit about our work so far and in efforts of seeing potential collaborations or feedback for the future. So New Voices Are Rising has installed a network of 6 monitors, working to expand to 8. So yeah, the community air monitoring network has been informed by youth voices from all the community engagement and feedback we received. And a lot of our monitors are even hosted by our youth alumni. We've also distributed over 50 air filters to community members most impacted by air pollution. So there's a picture of me installing a monitor at one of our alumni's houses. Next slide. We're also working on sharing our data and the results from the monitors that we've installed, but also sharing how to make air quality data more accessible. We started sharing our findings on social media so youth and community can easily see what the data means. We also hosted a youth data camp where we helped young people learn how to read, question, and use air quality data. I built a youth air quality web app to explore PM 2.5 data and trends over time and location. So that's the link. I can maybe, yeah, if someone could put that in the chat, or I can put it in the chat after. But there's also the QR code if you want to take a look. But the web app just kind of shows things like best exposure window, worst exposure window, and summarizes over day of week, and has calendar plots, just different ways of visualizing for the different monitors that we've installed. And upcoming, we have a spring air quality monitoring communications and visioning workshop where youth will give input on how they want air quality data to be shared. So our youth fellows right now are leading that process, and they'll be hosting the workshop. Next slide. So finally, our call to action. We are working towards increased accessibility of air quality data for youth and families. And we want to get more input from youth on the solutions that they want to see and how they want the data to be showed to them. So our ask to you all is for increased youth plus agency collaboration. So we ask that you continue connecting with our youth. Thank you so much for coming today. Another way you can support is through policy and resources, so champion funding and support for the recommendations that our youth presented today. Next slide. Okay, well, that's all we have for our recommendations and our findings. Thank you so much for listening. And now we'd love to hear your thoughts. We reserved this last portion of the meeting to kind of be like an interactive space for feedback, Q&A. So I invite you all to just take a moment if you want to answer any of these questions. What stood out to you for those working at agencies or with policymakers? What feels most actionable from your role? Or also, what questions do you have for the youth or for us? So yeah, I can just hand it over to y'all.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to go first. I'm Sam with Assemblymember Mia Bonta's office. I want to say thank you so much for inviting our team. Unfortunately, Assemblymember Bonta was not able to join. She's got an event in Sacramento with the speaker, but I will be sure to share all your information, the data you've collected. And this Shiny app is really cool, so I'm very, very impressed. But I'll make sure this gets to Assemblymember Bonta, and I think there's a ton of great legislative suggestions. Just off the top of my head, I don't think there are any real requirements for data or for data collection or air quality monitoring around schools, pretty much at all in California. So that's definitely something that immediately jumps up to the top of my head as something that's very actionable. Your point around freeways as well. I think there's not really hard and fast rules requiring trees along the highway, as you mentioned. And actually, that's sort of discouraged. So that's another way the state could go. But just checking out the Shiny app, I do have a question. How did you find the emission sources? Just looking, our district covers East Oakland, so just looking at the East Oakland map. Yeah, how did you find the emission sources? And then did you physically like put these monitors around the city, or where are you pulling data from?
Yeah, so the emission sources, I believe the source is listed on there. I don't remember the exact name of it, but I know it's like on the map. And then I can also send you more information about, okay, yeah, it's from the 2020 BACMed permitted stationary sources. So honestly, with our analysis, I think we've been having a hard time finding like a consensus of like these are the like, emission sources or like polluters. But oh yeah, I think I can screen share the web app if y'all are curious about what I'm sharing.
Yeah. I think, Andrea, why don't you stop sharing screen? And then, yeah, Jackie, you can screen share the web app a bit and maybe walk through it. I agree. It's also really, really cool. And I was so surprised all that data could be represented like that.
Okay, let me share. Mm, okay, let's see. Hope everyone can see this. But yeah, I linked here where I found the sources, and then I also filtered it, I think by like a certain amount so that I don't think they're all showing up on the map, but they'll all show up on this data set. And then the monitors that we have, the ones with stars are the ones that New Voices we have installed. So I think, well, yeah, I physically installed them and then with the help of Michaela and Andrea. And then I also just added in some of the monitors that are in a 1.5 mile radius of our sensors, just to kind of show like where, yeah, what are some nearby monitors. My plan in the future is to also pull data from the neighboring monitors, so that we can provide like a more comprehensive view of like, if you live in this neighborhood, then you have an average of all these monitors that you can look at when you're curious about like, yeah, what is the best time to go for a walk, or when is the best time to like maybe avoid being outside, things like that. But yeah, it's just data that from Purple Air monitors that we've installed.
And so are those purple air monitors drastically different than the ones maybe EnviroScreen are using, or BAAD or BAQAQMD are using?
Um, I'm not totally sure if they're different from, well, the monitors themselves are definitely very different because we're using like low cost sensors. Um, we use Purple Air monitors because we spoke with a lot of other EJ orgs, and they kind of gave us this recommendation of using this as yeah, a monitor that would work for community monitoring network. So yeah, I think because they are, yeah, low cost sensors, they are more limited than like the regulatory grade monitors. But also with Cal and VirusScreen, I think like our youth, like Selena was saying, like those are consensus data, which is like doesn't show you all the granularity and like details of these like real-time monitors. But yeah, this is kind of what it looks like. If y'all are curious, you can like kind of filter, but yeah.
That is so cool. Thank you.
Oh, Colleen.
Yes, hi Jackie. Thank you. Colleen Liang, Director of Environmental Programs and Planning at the Port of Oakland. Thank you for inviting me to hear the results of your air monitoring. I think what resonated was that there needs to be continued awareness just from the industries like the Port of Oakland to the youth. I think I saw that as one of the like, didn't know how these industries impact our community. And so I think it continues to be very important for industries like the port to collaborate and continue to work together with Rose Foundation as we are on certain projects right now, but continue to share the awareness of, I'm just going to speak on behalf of the port, of what the port is doing, what the port is implementing right now, what we can move forward with, and, and continue how we can be innovative and implement further environmental initiatives in our communities here in Oakland. I do want to ask too is, I noticed that you're going to do additional air quality monitoring, and, Michaela, you're on the AB 617 committee, as well as I am on the East Oakland committee. And there are some strategies that I believe the Air District or some other industries may be installing air quality monitors. So I just want to make sure that there's no duplicate efforts here, that it's more complementary. And if there's things that AB 617 is doing, that make sure that there's discussions. And then also I saw about the shrubberies and the green trees that are lacking, if you will, in at least in East Oakland. I do know like other community-based organizations such as Lifers Leaving a Legacy, they're also looking or have a grant to install some trees. So again, just if hopefully there's collaboration and communication. I mean, I know there's collaboration, but there's constant communication on what each other organizations are doing. So I encourage that conversation, and we can be part of that as well, because I'm from, and Michaela knows Mr. Charles as well. And we can see what the work that they're doing or moving forward with. So again, there's no duplicate efforts. But this is great information for us, and looking forward to continue working together.
Yeah, I can just add in exactly to what you were saying, Colleen, is that, yeah, a lot of this work, I know when we all first started even trying to decide the monitoring locations, a lot of it definitely was reaching out to people who have been doing this work for a long time. So, for example, West Oakland, the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project. I know Jackie attends meetings in Contra Costa with Sustainable Contra Costa to really ask those questions and make sure we're not just duplicating work that has already been done. The same thing for communities in Bayview, Hunters Point. We talked a lot to Green Action, and the Marie Harrison Foundation to really make sure we're getting to locations that maybe have been underserved or just not highlighted as much so far. And I think definitely for the East Oakland AB 617 process, we're in a lot of collaboration with a lot of the groups. That process is actually moving to implementation soon. So we're going to be starting to see a lot of that urban greening work and the actual installation of monitors. And then for New Voices, I think what's really unique about our program is that we are working in Oakland and Contra Costa County. So we're able to kind of extend that and reach youth that maybe are like a lot of the times these processes are really siloed. East Oakland versus West Oakland, Richmond. So we're able to kind of add to that collaboration and bring some different voices together. So yeah, we're really excited. And then of course, New Voices and the Rose Foundation is working a lot on the Clean Ports project, which also
Mhm.
has some air quality work. So we are in the thick of it for sure.
Great. Awesome. Thank
Thank
you.
you for all of that feedback though also. We
Thank you.
definitely need to do some follow-up conversations now that
Yeah.
it's the new year. So
Yes. Sounds good.
I can answer or hear from Dan and then Anna.
Yeah, thanks so much for the presentation. I'm Dan Ulrich. I'm with the Air District and work primarily with data analysis and air monitoring data. Yeah, really enjoyed the presentation. Like, incredible job putting all this work together. I'm going to be spending some time in the dashboard as well. That's kind of like my jam at work as well. So I'm really looking forward to getting into that and sharing um, this information with my team as well. Um, I can I think I can touch on a couple of the points that came up in questions already, just on the purple air data versus like the regulatory data that we collect through the air district um, and and yeah, Jackie, as you said, like the purple air sensors they're lower cost sensors, and so they can serve like different purposes than like the regulatory grade data, but we do generally find that like the data track each other like really well over time and in different locations. So that's been really encouraging, and I think that's partly why um, you know the purple air sensors have kind of been the sensors that have kind of gained the most traction like across the country for for that type of purpose for as a lower cost sensor. Um, and yeah, definitely appreciate the interest in collaboration kind of across different projects. There are so many community groups that are um, working with sensor data in different ways, whether it's looking at data or helping install sensors in different locations. I know, internally within the Air District, one thing that we've been wanting to kind of get the ball rolling on it is maybe even hosting some kind of like convening um, for um, for groups to get together and kind of hear from each other and kind of making a centralized space for those conversations too. We always love to hear everything that's going on. It helps us hear about things that we didn't necessarily know about. So I think that's something that I think there's broad interest in. And I think Colleen, you had noted some of the air monitoring efforts that are in the AB 617 SERP for East Oakland. So there's an air monitoring project that the Air District and CDE are leading. That was through some EPA funding. And one of the goals of that is to help fill in that gap in sensor data too in East Oakland in particular. So a number of sensors have been installed already as part of that project, which is great. And then I heard earlier in the presentation kind of an interest in mobile monitoring data as well. So we've been using our air monitoring van in East Oakland for a project, and we'll be excited to kind of share data and information from that project over the next few months as that wraps up. But yeah, that was it. But mostly I just wanted to say thank you so much for the presentation. This is really exciting, and look forward to hearing more and also sharing this information with my team as well, and see where we can continue to collaborate.
Yeah, thank you so much. Anna?
Yeah. Hey, hello. My name is Anna Liu. I'm a public information officer with MTC and ABAT engagement team. Thank you for inviting me. It's been a very impressive presentation. Because I'm working on the engagement, so I have a quick question. So, how do you usually recruit participants for engagement, like your focus groups or surveys? It would be helpful to know for future engagement opportunity and collaboration with Rose Foundation and MTC and ABAC. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, I think we can all speak on this, our youth alumni and also our team. I may pass it over to Andrea after I give my answer, because I feel like she's so great at youth outreach and just outreach in general. But I would say we definitely just lean on our networks of youth. So, for example, for the air quality workshop, our youth led that, and they created like their outreach lists. They contacted like their like environmental clubs at school, or their like community members, their friends. We post it on like social media. We reach out to our alumni and try to get, that kind of network to reach out. But I can also pass it to Andrea.
I would say before Andrea, Natir, Selena, do y'all want to talk a little bit about what it was like doing outreach? I know for y'all it was maybe like a year ago now, but yeah, do y'all have anything to add on or anything that you found works with your friends or anything?
I can add on. Well, I remember like other than the previous fellows that we invited, I know I reached out mainly to Oakland schools around like more, let's say, vulnerable population, because I went to a school that was not as impacted by air quality. I had friends that were like, say, in Oakland High or in more like charter schools. I would ask them out if they could like like a poster or like a Gmail out to the students to like sign up to this workshop, and then also try to incentivize them by like saying you get hours or get some money.
Thank you. Andrew, do you want anything else to say?
Yeah, I mean, Jackie and Selena kind of covered it, but I think for me, what works a lot is finding the linked learning liaisons at schools, or like the people who work with the community outside of the schools, at schools, because they're always looking for opportunities for students to take. And so they'll happily take any flyers or emails or whatever, and send it out. So I found that was pretty effective in getting youth to come to our events. I'll pass it back to Michaela, or was that a question? Okay, I'll pass it to Joel then, I think.
Great. Well, kudos to the whole team. This is a really great project to learn about, and I'm also really impressed by the presentation itself. It's a lot of information that could be really complicated to present, but it was just exceptionally clear. I had a comment and then a question. The comment related to the lack of purple air monitors, particularly in industrial areas. And I would imagine that a lot of those businesses and companies within those industrial areas may not be totally receptive to installing their own purple air monitors in that area. But knowing where some of those areas are, I'm wondering if there might be opportunities with any government facilities that are situated within those same areas, and if that's something that would be worth exploring, right? Like I'm thinking in West Oakland, there's the post office, for example, and other public agencies that have it could be fleets or other types of facilities. Just that may be an approach to take if you're looking to get more purple monitors in there, if that, of course, is a idea that you haven't already considered. And then my question had to do with the results from one of the focus groups. There was a bullet that mentioned different perspectives from some of the community members in terms of the amount of pollution that they experience. And what I didn't catch, my apologies, is whether there were trends with that. So was it that the youth and the data were showing higher levels and the community perceived lower levels, or was it vice versa, or did you have essentially feedback in both directions?
If I remember correctly, Selena, that may have been the part that you mentioned about purple air versus Calum Viruscreen, or yeah, I think.
So like the is it like the workshop findings and then my interpretation of the data that we got?
I think it was related to the workshop findings.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And some of
So
in one of the focus groups, maybe, or it's not focus groups, but scenarios. I can't remember the phrase. I'm sorry, from the
no,
presentation.
it's all right. I think there's one that was about the workshop where I talked about how there was like some mismatch of data because some Jung said that like they have healthier air quality shown in purple air, but then in Caramanto's screen, it's like different and it's like they're red, basically. So what I kind of concluded from this is that like there seems like the data that we got from like the volatility of the data from purple air is different from the consensus data of Caramanto screen. So there's a little difference, but also
Yeah.
some of the youth don't experience as much of a PM 2.5 issue as opposed to like other participants. That could also be like why it's like showing this difference, basically.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Michaela?
Yeah, I'll pause also to see if there's any last like burning questions from any of our guests.
Yeah, just a super quick question. Were you all saying, sorry, I sort of missed that you were finding discrepancies between your data collected and EnviroScreen?
Yes, kind of. Well, it's like the youth reported that it seems like it was different from it seems like it's more polluted on Caramanto screen, but then it's not on purple air.
Right. Well, sorry, did I cut anybody off?
Oh no, you can go ahead.
I've definitely heard or maybe seen news articles that have kind of maybe questioned some of the credibility of at least some of the census tracts that EnviroScreen has. So I would definitely say that that's probably a good catch on y'all's part.
Yeah, I would say also because purple air is like real-time data and it doesn't summarize it, like it could just be, yeah, I think throughout different times it might look differently. Like I think there's times where like I see the map kind of all lit up with like really concerningly high levels, but sometimes it's not. So I think because CalMatter screen is averaged differently, we definitely get like discrepancies. But I think that's why Selena was saying like it'd be cool to see like things that kind of hold both at the same time on the same platform, maybe. But yeah, I'll pass it to Michaela.
Yeah, and kind of like what Joel just put in the chat, Screen looks at a lot of other pollution sources, whereas Purple Air just looks at particulate matter, which usually comes from diesel, traffic, wildfires, things like that. So yeah, I think like Selena said in one of her slides, I think when we think about the future of our air quality work, a big thing is trying to extend past just purple air so we can start tracking like different gases like NOx and SOx or black carbon, which comes from a lot of like industrial pollution. But that's also like a lot more advanced. The equipment is a lot more expensive. So yeah, those are partnerships we're working on now. So maybe some future work. But yeah, there definitely are discrepancies. Um, I know it is six, but I just wanted to hear really quick from Natia and Selena. So y'all have worked on this process for like about a year now and then have come back to do this presentation. I guess what for you as youth, because if it wasn't mentioned, I know Natia and Selena just finished high school and they're in college, which is also an amazing thing to be able to do a presentation like this at such a young age. But what do you think is important for, especially for some of the decision makers on the call or groups that do community engagement, to keep youth involved and engaged in this type of work? And y'all can just summarize it really quick because I know we're at time.
I can start off. Well, I feel like in my experience, a lot of the, in my experience at least, I got into EJ because I've learned how my community really impacts my health. And I didn't really get to know of these like nitty-gritty details up until I got to learn of it. So I would say moving forward, definitely youth education is a crucial component in like increasing awareness and like having more work done with EJ work. I'll pass it to Natia.
Yeah, that was basically going to say something similar. Maybe like working with schools or just like education, having more like education-based learning for youth about air quality or just about their environment. So like they can learn similar things that we learn, which is really important to understanding your own community. But
Okay, well, yeah, thank you so much for your feedback and for coming. We really appreciate your attendance and participation. I know it's time, so if y'all need to go, feel free to hop off. But if you have any questions, I think you all have my email, but I can also type it again in the chat.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you again. And I think for some folks, we definitely will be following up, but also feel free to reach out to Jackie directly because we are doing another round of air monitoring, like she mentioned, and installing a couple more. And we are trying to continue to expand our air quality work and create more partnerships at all levels. So yeah, and really, really great job to Natia and Selena for doing this work in like high school and early college because I know most of us were probably not doing these types of things at that age. So, yeah, but thank you all so much for coming and all of the support for the New Voices Are Rising program and youth education in the Bay Area.